"My new dad," I remarked with a hint of irony, attempting to dispel any emotions that might trouble me. My mother navigated through a series of relationships, each arrival a surprise and each departure a familiar pattern, leading me to believe there was little reason for excitement, or so I thought. As I completed the arrangement of the table, the sound of the car's engine cutting off echoed just outside the house. It seemed the moment had arrived to encounter the new father figure that my mother had introduced to me today. I mused quietly to myself. It was that moment that had been haunting my thoughts, lingering just beneath the surface as I tried to push it away. I made no effort to prepare myself. I donned a pair of short pants and an old, stretched-out shirt from home. With meticulous care, I dedicated myself to the art of lunch preparation, slicing vegetables with precision, arranging the rice on the plate, sculpting it into a form that might be deemed visually appealing. The sound of my mom's footsteps echoed from the living room, followed by her voice calling my name, infused with a cheerful tone that mirrored my own bubbling excitement. I paused, inhaled deeply, and compelled myself to stride into the living room without a moment's hesitation. And then I laid eyes on him. I couldn't quite discern what he was anticipating in his search for me, yet from that very first moment, something within him ensnared my complete focus. He was not merely a father, he was a daddy. This man was entirely different from my expectations. His demeanor exuded a confident grace, as though he were destined to captivate attention effortlessly. I remained motionless for a moment that stretched into infinity, taking in every detail of him. His clear eyes ensnared me the moment they met mine, and I sensed an inexplicable sensation coursing through me, from my stomach to my skin, leaving a tingling trace in its wake. The new father reached out his hand, a smile gracing his lips that carried a certain gravity, a blend of politeness and an unspoken understanding, as though we both recognized that this moment transcended a mere greeting. The warmth of his skin, tinged with a rosy hue, enveloped me completely. His full, well-defined lips articulated a straightforward, "A pleasure to meet you," accompanied by a rich and inviting voice, as his gaze traversed my face, inadvertently straying towards the frayed collar of my shirt. A shiver coursed through me, leaving me astonished by my own response. "The flavor belongs to me," I responded, striving for a tone of neutrality, my fingers lightly gripping his hand as he regarded me with a fleeting yet fervent curiosity. In that moment, my mother shattered the palpable tension and extended an invitation for us to celebrate. I wrenched my eyes away, allowing myself to release my grip with a feigned motion as if I were setting something down on the table. We entered the dining room, and he took a seat across from me, keenly observing every nuance of my movements. I endeavored to concentrate on serving the food, yet each time I lifted my gaze, he was there, observing me, as though he could perceive the depths beyond the indifferent facade I was striving to uphold. As we dined, he inclined his body ever so slightly towards me with each word he uttered, fostering an air of intimacy that seemed entirely intentional. In each word and every gesture, there existed a silent bond that, despite my incomplete comprehension, drew me in deeper and deeper. I was perplexed by my mother's inability to perceive the palpable energy that enveloped the space between him and me. The dialogue unfolded around me, yet I scarcely registered their words, lost in the labyrinth of my own musings. A perpetual struggle unfolded within me, torn between the desire to gaze upon him and the trepidation that he might unearth the tumultuous emotions swirling within, emotions I myself could not fully grasp. After my new dad departed, my mother reached out to me for a conversation with him. The exchange with my mother rendered me both incredulous and slightly amused. It was utterly ridiculous to expect me to refer to Dad as a man who could have easily been my peer in school. I found myself unable to resist envisioning that scene, my eyes widening in disbelief. "Father, could you please hand me the salt?" "Oh, Father, what are your thoughts on this book?" The nervous smile that idea evoked was nearly impossible to conceal. Yet, as absurd as it seemed, I found myself in an extraordinary predicament. My mother had never articulated her thoughts about any man in such a manner. The earlier experiences, while they had provided her with moments of joy and vitality, had failed to ignite this profound yearning for wholeness. Now, she appeared as a love-struck teenager, yearning for me to join her in this enchanting bubble of joy, hoping for my approval of this man, and secretly wishing to experience even a fraction of the emotions that consumed her. Yet, the most unsettling aspect was not her plea, but the revelation that stirred me from my slumber. There was an unmistakable essence within him, evident in the way his gaze met mine upon his return home. Maybe it was the effortless way he laughed, or how his eyes twinkled with mischief whenever he delivered a sarcastic remark. Those rich, dark eyes that appeared to grasp my essence more profoundly than I was willing to acknowledge. He possessed an effortless charm that naturally drew the attention of every woman around him. My heart raced, caught in a curious blend of anxiety and anticipation. I envisioned the experience of cohabiting with him, discovering him in the kitchen as I brewed my morning coffee, or catching his gaze from across the corridor in the stillness of the night. The allure of that intimacy held a perilous charm that captivated me, a sensation that stirred my very essence, even amidst the turmoil of my internal conflict. "Well, my dear daughter, I am about to witness the joy of my life," he remarked, gesturing towards him, before departing. My mother returned in the evening, her smile broad and unrestrained, no longer concealed. She approached me, her excitement palpable, and with a sparkle in her eyes, she shared her love for the idea, announcing that she would be settling in tomorrow. I nodded, attempting to feign a joy that eluded me entirely. A tension gripped my chest, an unshakable awareness that this moment would irrevocably alter something within me, a transformation I had yet to comprehend. The day of his arrival had come, and I found myself at a loss for what to wear. The clock ticked forward, and nearly all my clothes lay strewn across the bed, each piece cast aside once again, as if none could possibly be the right choice today. Among all the dresses, I found myself unable to make a choice. I understood the necessity of subtlety, the importance of not drawing undue attention, for any misjudged remark could shift my mother's perspective entirely. Ultimately, it was not my presence he would choose to share his life with, but hers. Yet an unseen force compelled me, a fire igniting within my very core. An unforeseen sensation ignited within me, a spark I could scarcely restrain, compelling me to seek out an allure that would captivate. It was utterly irrational and profoundly perilous. Ultimately, my fingers lingered on a dress featuring a rather alluring neckline, one I hadn't donned in years, revealing the curves that nature had bestowed upon me. I gazed into the mirror, a sense of insecurity washing over me, and the reflection seemed to regard me with an unfamiliar gaze, as though it were not truly me. The damp strands cascaded over my shoulders, and I opted for a headband that lent an air of innocence, a striking contrast to the glimmer in my eyes. Delicately, I selected a pair of small earrings that dangled subtly from my ears, and with a deep breath, I prepared to step out of the room. My mother sat there, flipping through a magazine with a detached air, until her eyes lifted and met mine. Her eyebrows arched, and she tilted her head ever so slightly, a blend of astonishment and a hint of pride evident in the movement. It was a rare expression that graced her features. "Oh, my dear daughter, you are utterly transformed," she exclaimed, her astonishment evident. "You truly resemble a princess." I smiled, stifling a nervous laugh. "Oh, mother, please, there's no need to embellish," I responded, attempting to downplay the significance. "It's merely a dress that has lingered unworn for quite some time. Before it gathers dust in the closet, I shall begin to wear it." Mom let out a sigh, her expression revealing a depth of understanding that belied the surface simplicity of the moment. My words appeared to please her, yet she still sensed that she was undermining me. At last, her silence shattered, releasing a soft sigh. "Ah, that's wonderful, my dear daughter. Let us pause for just a moment longer." She just rang me up and mentioned that in roughly 5 minutes, if all goes well, she'll arrive. My hesitation stretched the moment, transforming the wait into something nearly intolerable. My fingers grazed the hem of the dress, hesitant, as I struggled to rein in my swirling thoughts. He returned home for her, not for me. It was utterly absurd, he insisted, yet I couldn't shake the unsettling chill that crept over me. The door finally chimed, with a gentle, almost restrained knock. As my mother rose, I lingered in the room, pausing to let the air thicken with the weight of his absence. As he stepped over the threshold, our gazes locked for a moment that lingered just a heartbeat longer than anticipated. He welcomed me with a polite smile, and I, unable to avert my gaze from him, could barely manage a response, acutely aware of how that revealing dress intensified the weight of his gaze upon me. As darkness fell, a transformation swept through the house. The night descended like a haunting shroud, and the tranquility was merely a facade in the shadows of the home. In the midst of the enveloping darkness and profound silence, I found myself unable to make sense of the dream. An unwavering, nearly compulsive thought consumed my thoughts: the shut door of my mother's room. A tumult of emotions, elusive and complex, swirled within me. It could have been the nagging feeling that something unsettling lurked beyond those walls, or perhaps it was merely an inexplicable curiosity, but the ambiguity enveloped me like a creeping malaise. Yet, deep down, I was acutely aware of the unfolding events within the confines of that room. At last, succumbing to the allure of rest, I slipped beneath the covers. My breath quickened, and each step toward the door of my room felt like a choice I could never take back. My feet felt burdened, as though I were moving toward an abyss, fully aware that should I plunge into its depths, there would be no coming back. Yet I pressed on, traversing the brief passage that lay between me and my mother's room. As I drew near, I halted just shy of the frigid wood of the door, and it was at that moment that the voices reached my ears. The initial voice, gentle and tentative, belonged to my mother, who cautioned in a hushed tone, "Just don't make too much noise. My daughter is merely 2 rooms away from this very spot." There was a moment of silence, and then his response reached my ears. His voice, rich and resonant with an unsettling confidence, stirred something within me, a calm affection that whispered assurances of my own control over the situation. In that instant, a flood of feelings engulfed me. It felt as though a flame had been ignited within my heart, and in an instant, I was engulfed by jealousy, anger, and an unfamiliar, sharp ache that eluded my comprehension. What was it about his presence, at that precise moment, alongside my mother, that stirred such deep emotions within me? What peculiar sensation was that, swirling within me? The world appeared to blur, suspended in a surreal reverie. Yet the truth was unavoidable, and that notion, that vision of him alongside her, started to engulf me, to obscure my mind. The air seemed thin, the ground unsteady beneath me, and with a determined effort, I pivoted, making my way back to my room. I surrendered to the bed, clutching the sheets in a desperate attempt to seek solace, yet slumber eluded me. My thoughts remained in turmoil, ensnared in that moment, caught in a web of words that had stirred a tempest within me. The following morning, the sun's feeble rays barely penetrated the curtains as I rose to begin my daily ritual. In the heart of the kitchen, I found myself balancing delicately on a bench, stretching to grasp a plastic basket perched high upon the shelf. My concentration was unwavering, my arms extended to their fullest, when out of nowhere, I sensed strong hands gripping my waist. A shiver coursed down my spine. I spun around swiftly to catch a glimpse of the figure behind me, and there he stood, my new stepfather, or as my mother insisted I refer to him, my new dad. His hair was styled up, and traces of my mother's makeup lingered on his face, suggesting that the night had been too brief for a full restoration. He offered me a smile laced with an air of languid intimacy, enveloping me in his embrace. "I stop you," he told me, his voice grave, resonating with the profound stillness of the night. "Thus, you may extend with assurance." Nacha was in a state of agitation, wasn't she? I inquired with a relaxed demeanor, yet I could sense the faint quiver in my voice. For a fleeting moment, his eyes sparkled, possibly ignited by the subtle implications woven into my inquiry. He responded with palpable agitation, his grip on me firm as I extended my hand toward the basket. In that fleeting instant, he assisted me in descending with a gentleness that took me by surprise, and our eyes met for a brief moment. With pursed lips and a subtle ache in my chest, I said to him, "Well, that's it. Thank you for your help. You can leave now." Yet he remained still. He explained that you were merely coming for a glass of water, yet the subtle inflection in his voice suggested an underlying meaning. "However, I can remain if you wish and assist you with something. Cooking brings me joy." My mother often remarked that a man skilled in the kitchen is never plagued by hunger. I pivoted and began searching for the breakfast ingredients, attempting to concentrate on anything but my thoughts. Without glancing in his direction, I whispered, "Do not worry. I always handle things on my own." "I see no reason to change that now." The silence thickened around us, and I found myself questioning whether he had surrendered. Yet, at some moment I failed to perceive, he drew nearer than I had anticipated. The warmth of his presence lingered just behind me. A shiver coursed through me as his hands settled softly on my shoulders. "I know what you have," he murmured, his voice barely more than a breath. Before I could fully grasp his words, his fingers glided along my neck, finally resting on my chin, guiding it gently so that our eyes could meet. And then, without his lips, they discovered mine. The kiss lingered, slow and deliberate, as if the very fabric of time had unraveled, erasing all that was amiss in a fleeting moment of raw openness. I found myself unable to resist. It was a desire I neither could nor wished to deny. The rhythm of my heart echoed in my ears, silencing any whisper of caution or logic, as though an unseen bond had tethered me to him in that instant. Yet, the weight of reality descended once more as my mother's voice echoed from the hallway, a sound steeped in familiarity that swiftly anchored me back to the present moment. "Darling, where did you manage to slip in?" he asked from the living room, his voice laced with concern. "You didn't go back to the room anymore?" We separated in an instant, the warmth on my cheeks unmistakable as I swiftly turned to the stove, feigning an inspection of the empty pot resting over the flames. He replied with unwavering calm, "I'm on my way, darling, just a moment." Instead, "Return, I will reconnect with you." I listened as his footsteps faded into the distance, culminating in the soft click of the door shutting behind him. I inhaled deeply, attempting to soothe the tempest raging within my thoughts, yet I understood that everything had irrevocably changed. From that moment forward, the part one assumed within the household transformed entirely. I stepped into my mother's role in her absence. My mother, on the other hand, exhibited no signs of suspicion or perhaps chose to remain silent. She confined herself to the rhythm of her days, as though each aspect of her life existed in isolated compartments. To my surprise, without any preamble, one day she chose to part ways with him. Silence enveloped the closed door, devoid of screams or conversations. She simply instructed him to depart, handling his belongings with a detachment that suggested he was nothing more than an unfamiliar face. As he stepped through the door for the final time, she declared that it was time to refresh the atmosphere. His words offered no explanations, devoid of any trace of remorse or doubt. She possessed that relentless determination, yet this time, amidst her calm demeanor, I discerned a different shadow, one that concealed far more beneath the surface. Though confusion enveloped me, I chose to stay quiet, suppressing the myriad of questions that bubbled within. I found no need to challenge my mother's choice, at least not overtly. Yet, ever since that moment, he has relentlessly sought me out. He dispatched messages. He seemed to materialize serendipitously in the haunts he often visited, and each time he did, his words echoed the same refrain, that we could forge a life together. A life unshackled from the influence of others' choices. He crafted a vision of the future that, while shrouded in uncertainty, held an alluring temptation, nearly forbidden in its appeal. His insistence grew to a point where it unsettled me, prompting a reevaluation of the boundaries that had previously appeared so distinct. I had encountered him in a different capacity, amidst varying circumstances, and accepting his proposal now suggested a transgression that, once surpassed, would irrevocably alter the course of everything. I would never dream of bringing it up with my mother. What might her thoughts be? Would she comprehend my thoughts or cast judgment upon me? Would she believe that I have forsaken the trust we once held so dearly? What tormented me even further was the question of what had compelled him to cast it aside so abruptly, a mystery that lingered in my mind, one that I still could not grasp. One might wonder why I chose not to sever all ties with him, why I refrained from establishing clear boundaries. Perhaps, beneath the surface, there was an element of his proposal that captivated my curiosity. The prospect of creating something anew alongside someone who, despite his denials, understood me profoundly, held an allure that felt almost perilous. Yet, intertwined with that allure, lingered a trepidation, the dread of being unable to witness what my mother had once beheld. If you found yourself in her shoes, what course of action would you take? What guidance would you offer her, fully aware that her heart is torn between the familiar and the possibilities that lie ahead? I extend my heartfelt gratitude for your attentive ear and the time you've devoted to my tales. As we part ways, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel and activate the notification bell, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if you enjoyed what you heard. A warm embrace from your friend Lucy, until we meet again.